bit in the ancient land of Israel. The sun was a relentless fire in the sky. It beat down on dusty fields and cracked earth. But it was not the land's greatest trouble. A deeper shadow had fallen over the people, and it was a shadow cast by the king himself. King Ahab ruled from a palace of great splendor, but his heart was far from God. At his side was Queen Jezebel, a woman of powerful will. Together, they had brought the worship of a false god, Baal, to the land, turning the people away from their true faith. Far from the gilded halls of the palace, a man named Elijah walked the barren hills. He was a simple, solitary prophet, with a worn robe and a beard touched by the wind. He saw the suffering of the people and the sin of their leaders, and he prayed for a sign from God. One day, as he knelt in the quiet wilderness, a powerful voice spoke to him, clear as a bell. The voice was that of the one true God, and it gave him a mission. Elijah was to go to the palace and deliver a message to King Ahab, a message that would change everything. With newfound strength, Elijah went to the palace. He stood before the king, unbowed and unafraid. He looked Ahab in the eye and declared that because of their wickedness, the heavens would close. Not a single drop of rain or dew would fall until Elijah commanded it. King Ahab was furious, but Elijah did not stay to face his wrath. Just as God had instructed, he turned and fled. His destination was a small, hidden place, the Brook of Cherith, a small stream where God would provide for him in the coming drought. The days turned into weeks. The land grew dry, and the sun scorched the earth. Yet, at the Brook of Cherith, Elijah was cared for. Every morning and every evening, a group of ravens arrived, carrying bread and meat, a miracle that showed God's faithfulness in a time of great need. But as the drought continued, even the steady brook began to shrink. The water, which had been Elijah's lifeline, became a mere trickle. The time had come for Elijah to move on, for God had a new plan for him in a new place. Elijah journeyed to the town of Zarephath. As he entered the city gates, he saw a poor widow gathering sticks. She was preparing to make the very last meal for herself and her son before they faced the famine. Elijah approached her with a strange request. The prophet asked the widow for a drink and a small loaf of bread. She told him that she had only a handful of flour and a little oil. But Elijah promised her that if she trusted in God, her jar of flour and jug of oil would never run out. With faith, she did as he said, and the miracle began. As the long, dry months passed, the widow's house became a haven of peace and provision. Her jar of flour was never empty, and the jug of oil was always full. It was a constant reminder of God's power and Elijah's promise, proving that faith could flourish even in the driest of times. But one day, a new kind of darkness entered the small home. The widow's son, her greatest joy, fell gravely ill. His fever burned like the sun outside, and his breath grew shallow, leaving his mother to watch over him with a heart full of fear. The sickness took hold, and the boy's strength faded. The mother, helpless and heartbroken, held her son as his young life slipped away. Her sorrow was a painful cry against the injustice of it all. A cry for the son she had almost lost to the famine, and had now lost to a new sorrow. The grieving mother, in her anguish, turned to Elijah. "What have you done to me, man of God?" she cried. "Did you come here to remind me of my sins, and to kill my son?" The burden of her grief twisted her words into a bitter accusation. a question born of pain and despair. Elijah's heart was heavy with the woman's pain. He did not defend himself. Instead, he simply asked her to give him her son. He carried the lifeless boy up the stairs, away from the weeping mother, to the quiet room where he slept, lying the boy on his own bed. Elijah cried out to God in his distress. "O Lord, my God," he pleaded, "have you brought tragedy to this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die?" It was a desperate prayer, a raw appeal for mercy, and a cry for the boy's life. Then, Elijah stretched himself out on the boy's body 3 times, praying to the Lord again. "O Lord, my God," he cried, "let this boy's life return to him." He was not just a man praying, but a messenger of God, acting in faith with every breath. Bah! And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah. The boy's spirit returned to him, and he began to breathe. Life flowed back into his body, the color returning to his cheeks. The boy's eyes fluttered open, and he sat up on the bed. The miracle was complete. Elah brought the boy down to his mother, his heart soaring with joy. "Look," he said, "your son is alive." The widow took her son into her arms, weeping tears of relief and a wonder so profound that it was beyond words. Her sorrow was replaced by a joy that was a taste of heaven. The widow, her faith renewed and strengthened by this incredible event, looked at Elijah with a new light in her eyes. "Now I know," she said, "that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." The famine continued, and the earth remained parched, but the time of hiding was ending. The Lord spoke to Elijah once more, telling him that it was time to leave the widow's house and to go back to King Ahab. "Go, present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land." The stage was set for the next great act. Meanwhile, back in Israel, King Ahab was on a desperate search for water with his faithful servant Obadiah. Obadiah, a man who feared God, had hidden and fed 100 of the Lord's prophets from the wicked queen Jezebel. The king sent Obadiah in one direction while he went in another. As Obadiah walked, he saw a familiar figure in the distance. It was Elijah. Filled with a mixture of fear and reverence, Obadiah fell to the ground and asked, "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" Elijah confirmed that it was he, and he gave Obadiah a command. "Go, tell your master, Elijah is here." But Obadiah was terrified. He feared that as soon as he left, the Spirit of the Lord would carry Elijah away, and Ahab would kill him for lying. Elijah swore to Obadiah that he would indeed show himself to the king that very day. Reassured by the solemn promise, Obadiah left, his heart pounding with both fear and hope. He found King Ahab and delivered the message that the prophet had returned. King Ahab rushed to meet Elijah. When he saw him, he asked with a scowl, "Is it you, the troubler of Israel?" Ahab's pride was on display as he blamed Elijah for the suffering caused by the drought. Elijah stood firm and faced the king's accusation head-on. "I have not troubled Israel," he said, "but you and your father's house have, by abandoning the Lord's commands and following the false god, Baal." It was a bold and direct confrontation, a clear declaration of the real problem. The prophet then proposed a contest. "Now, send for all of Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." The stage was set for a dramatic showdown. A great multitude of people gathered on Mount Carmel. It was a silent sea of faces, filled with anticipation and uncertainty. They watched as Elijah, a single man, stood alone against the 850 prophets of Baal and Eliad addressed the people. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. The people were silent. They had no answer, and their silence spoke volumes about their divided hearts. Elijah turned to the prophets. I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but there are 450 of Baal's prophets. Let 2 bulls be given to us. Let them choose one for themselves. Cut it into pieces, and lay it on the wood, but do not light the fire. Then Elijah declared, You call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God. It was a simple yet powerful test, designed to reveal the truth to everyone present. The prophets of Baal accepted the challenge. They took their bull and prepared it. They laid it on the wood and began to call out to their God from morning until noon. O Baal, answer us, they cried, their voices growing more desperate with each passing moment. The minutes turned into hours, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. The prophets of Baal danced and shouted, but there was no voice, no answer, no fire. The air was filled with a deafening silence. End of part 1.